Wisdom taking out the dangerous throws in judo allowed judo training to be 100%. We didn't have to wear padding. We didn't have to wear all kinds of things. We didn't have to pull our punches. In judo, we can go 100% at each other because he eliminated the 4 or 5 major throws from jiu-jitsu where if you did them, you'd break the guy's ankle or you'd dislocate the guy's knee. So he wanted you to be able to go 100%. And that's one of the great things about the judo randori. When you randori in judo and then later on go to shiai, the tournaments, you're really going at it like with everything. And you don't have to hold back at all. Well, I was a youngster growing up in a nice Jewish neighborhood in Pittsburgh. I played television, not baseball, football, or basketball. Everything to me was sitting in front of that television, enjoying and fantasizing whatever I watched. One of my first shows I loved was Highway Patrol with Broderick Crawford, and a lot of people say I took on his persona as the head of the Highway Patrol, tend to boss people around. Move, 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 move. You go over there, 10-4. And when it came time to be picked for the basketball team or the track or the baseball team, softball, whatever, I was always left out. That was my position. So along comes this TV show in 66 or 65 called The Green Hornet. And there's this guy on the show wearing a mask, Chinese guy that was like the valet to the rich star of the show, and they called him Kato, and he kicked the ass of all these people making all these funny noises and everything. And I watched that and I said, you know, if I knew that kind of stuff, they wouldn't pick on me anymore. Even though I'm not so good at sports, I said, I really like to learn whatever that guy's doing. So I started kicking that around in my mind. And right before that happened, I went through a phase where I was trying guitar. And my dad got me this guitar, and I went to a couple guitar classes. The guitar he bought me wasn't that great. I came back home and said, the people at the guitar class said this isn't that great of a model of a guitar. And my mother and late big brother kind of ganged up on my dad. Why'd you buy him such a cheap guitar? Get him a better one. So he took it back to his friend who owned a pawn shop and got me a better one. And I went to another couple guitar classes and quit. And that was about the time that this Bruce Lee infected me. And I was talking about doing something like that, and I had a nerdy friend in Pittsburgh that was very well read, and he told me he was going to sign up for this judo class at the Jewish Y. And as soon as he said that, I said, oh, I want to do that. I've been wanting to learn that stuff like the guy does on the Green Hornet. So we went down to the Jewish Y, and they had the class above the gym in the mezzanine. The mezzanine of the gym, there was a boxing ring that they took out, and they had some mats there, and you could overlook the gym Apparently, what I found out was that we missed the first lesson. And there were some kids I recognized, some Jewish kids that already had like a orange belt, and they were telling us about the class and the instructor, and then all of a sudden they said, look, there he is. And he was walking across the gym floor, and we were up above on this mezzanine watching him, and I saw this giant Bruce Lee. I mean, he was 6'2", 220-pound Korean. Kyu-ha Kim is his name, was his name. He's passed now. And he walked in with such a poise, swagger. I watched him walk across the gym floor, and it was like he looked and reminded me everything of Bruce Lee. Handsome, very debonair, and had poise, but he was a lot bigger than Bruce Lee. He was 6'2", 220 pounds. When he finally came up the steps to the mezzanine, in order to get in the room, he had to duck to get under the door. And he had a very nice, soft-spoken manner. Hi, how you doing, kids? I'm here for the class today. Shook hands with some of the parents, and he was just so approachable and such a genuinely warm person. And we got on the mat and started judo that day. And at the end of the class, he told me, you're gonna need judo uniform, judo gi, bring $15 next week. And I said, okay, I'll tell my dad. Well, the next week came along, and Mr. Kim said, do you have the money for the judo gi? And I said, oh, my dad won't buy me one. He says, why not? And I said, he thinks I'm gonna quit like I did the guitar. And so Mr. Kim said, can I have your phone number? And I gave it to him, and his English was pretty broken. I mean, I didn't have any trouble understanding him from the get-go, but I mean, you know, he was speaking a pretty broken English. He's South Korean. And I remember a couple days later, I see my dad on the phone, and it's Mr. Kim he's talking to, and they're going back and forth. Well, my son's a quitter. He's not going to stay with it. He made me get him 2 guitars, and then he quit. And so finally, what Mr. Kim did, I found out from Mr. Kim, was he made a deal with my dad. He told my dad, if Gary quits the judo, I will buy the uniform back. And 50 years later, I'm on the mat at Mr. Kim's now 8th degree black belt, president of the U.S. Judo Association, creator of the Winter Nationals, one of the biggest tournaments in the United States, writing articles for Val on occasions, friends with Hal Sharp, Hayward Nishioka, and Mr. Kim's introducing me to his class, very proud. He's a healthcare industry entrepreneur. He founded several companies. At the 8th degree, one of my top students started the Pitt Judo Club. But the reason he's still in judo is because when he first started, I told him he needed a gi, and his dad wouldn't buy it. And his dad made a deal with me that if he quit the judo, I'd have to buy the gi back. So I told him he can never quit the judo, and that's why he's still in judo. That's how Mr. Kim would introduce me at his class 50 years later. So the judo training back in the mid-60s when I first started, it was very basic. We would bow into the class, do a warm-up, do our falls, and then tons of what they call in judo uchikomi. Uchikomi is fitting the throw. There's 3 parts to a throw, to be technical for a minute. There's the breaking of the balance, the kazushi, then there's the entry into the throw, the sakuri, and then finally the throw itself, the kaki. And obviously, to train in judo, if you keep going in and doing all 3 parts, throwing the guy, number 1, it's going to take a lot of time because he's got to get up and down and get back up. Number 2, he's going to wear out eventually because you keep repeatedly throw the guy, even though he knows how to fall and you're on a mat. If you're trying to kill each other with throws and that's all you're doing the whole night, you're going to wear each other out. So uchikomi is where you only do the first 2 parts of the throw. You come in breaking the balance, and you do the entry to the throw, and you back out, and you keep going in, and you repeat that hundreds of times. And that's pretty much the way judo throughout Asia, Korea, Japan was being taught. And that's what we did. We'd come in and we'd do like 45 minutes of uchikomi, and then the rest of the class we'd do randori, which is free practice fighting in judo. And in his infinite wisdom, Kano, when he eliminated the treacherous moves in jiu-jitsu, what he did was he eliminated the dangerous moves so that you could go all out. You could go balls out and do the judo. And one of the first people to appreciate the judo randori as probably the strongest form of training in all martial arts was Bruce Lee himself. He would tell this to Jean LaBelle, who became good friends with me over the years. And Bruce understood that Kano's wisdom, taking out the dangerous throws in judo, allowed judo training to be 100%. We didn't have to wear padding. We didn't have to wear all kinds of things. We didn't have to pull our punches. In judo, we can go 100% at each other because he eliminated the 4 or 5 major throws from jiu-jitsu where if you did them, you'd break the guy's ankle or you'd dislocate the guy's knee. So he wanted you to be able to go 100%. And that's one of the great things about the judo randori. When you randori in judo and then later on go to shiai, the tournaments, you're really going at it like with everything. And you don't have to hold back at all. And because of that, the randori training in judo is, from Bruce Lee's perspective, the strongest training method available. And it's all because of Kano's brilliance. Kano, his primary discipline was that of an educator. He organized judo like a college course where he started with more simple and then went to more advanced, and he put it in a syllabus, and then he came up with the rank system. And the rank system was just like a college course. You go get your freshman, then you graduate, then you get your master's degree. Eventually, you become a black belt. And at the higher level black belts, 6th degree and above, where you can wear the red and white belt, you're like a doctorate in judo. And then the level above that, the 9th and the 10th degree, which are solid red belts, those are like Professor Emeritus, like those are like sainthood, like Mother Teresa status, like what Hayward is, and people like that. So again, and I have this talk a lot with Hayward Nishioka, who's one of my best friends and one of my mentors over the years, which I'm proud of. If you understand how college courses are structured, that's how he structured judo. And, you know, when he talked to Funakoshi and when he talked to Ishiba about becoming part of the Kodokan, it wasn't that he wanted them to give up and become part of judo. What he wanted them to do is be more organized the same way judo was. And seriously, as we talked about earlier when we were just kibitzing here when I first got her, Val, I mean, the whole martial arts industry, you could really say Kano was the founder of. I mean, they didn't have gis, they didn't have black belts, they didn't have syllabus, they didn't have mats. I mean, all this stuff that now, you know, all these martial arts companies sell in their billion-dollar industry, you can attribute that to the wisdom of Kano, the way he unified judo and you know, Funakoshi and Ishiba and Taekwondo, they all kind of followed that model. And BJJ, so I mean, you know, he not only developed judo, but he kind of framed the martial arts. You know, he came up with the paradigm that is pretty much across the board in the martial arts. Judo, as we all know, is the first martial art to be accepted as an Olympic sport. And it was tied into the '64 Olympics, which coincidentally were in Japan. And that got judo a lot of notoriety and put judo on the map in a big way. And to some people, they would say it also hurt judo. We can talk about that a little bit. I remember articles in Black Belt in the 60s by Aaron Banks where he said why karate should not be in the Olympics. And the theme of the article was, look what happened to judo. I mean, so, you know, when you're an Olympic sport, it does put some limits on you as to what can be allowed in competition that's going to be televised versus what you could do in your dojo or in the private sector. So, you know, in the early 60s when judo first came in, it was pretty pure judo. You know, you had basically the wazari half point and the ippon, the full point, which is a knockout in judo. And the matches would run long, and the referees kind of stayed out of the way, and the players did their judo. But over the years, as it evolved, the judo had to evolve too, because number one, they didn't want it to be boring and have a lot of lag times. And then prior to, I believe, the Olympics in London, believe it or not, wrestling was on the bubble. Wrestling, the core of the Olympics, they were talking about deleting it from the Olympics because it was too boring, you know, and no offense to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people, but I mean, you know, seeing people move around on the ground, that doesn't sell a lot of television. You know, no one wants to see two guys moving around on the ground for 10 minutes trying to find the crossed arm lock, the Juji-Gatame in judo. You know, they want to see action. So in order to speed up the action, the International Judo Federation took a hard look at the rules of judo, and they made rulings about grabbing the legs, about picking people up like you do in wrestling. And you know, unfortunately, some of those moves in judo are among the best judo techniques there are in real life, certainly in self-defense. But on the television, you know, when you're trying to get sponsors and keep the Olympics from deleting you as a sport because you're losing ratings, it doesn't sell. So a lot of the newer judo rules that are now in place are there to make it flashier, you know, big throws, spectacular things, and not a lot of fights that end up on the ground, or, you know, winning by ways that don't look as sensational on a television broadcast. So that's pretty much the evolution in how, in some ways, the Olympics affected judo on the positive side, and some ways on how it affected it on the negative side.
You can cheat in karate, you can cheat in all kinds of other sports, but in judo you can't cheat. In judo, there is a certain perfection. When you do a perfect throw, it's
there's no, exactly. In judo, the ultimate victory is the ippon. When the referee puts his arm straight up, ippon means 1 full point, and that ends the match in judo instantaneously. And that can be accomplished several ways. One way it can be accomplished is through a pin. Used to be 30 seconds, now we're down to 20 seconds. And it used to be a combination of a pin and a throw. You get a half point for a throw that wasn't totally perfected in terms of its power, its landing, so the referee gives you a wazari half point, and then you proceed into the mat work, and nowadays 10 seconds is another wazari, so a half and a half equals a whole. So that's another way to win in judo. Another way you can win is doing a pin for the full 20 seconds. And I explained this at my class the other day, and I'm going to share this with the people in your audience here, Val. I think one of the reasons they look at a pin in judo as a victory for an ippon, I think it goes back to the samurai. I think what you're looking at is a battle on a field, and they're coming out with their horses and their katana and their armor, and they're fighting. Then they get knocked off their horses, and they're now in the ground battle, duking it out. And now you get Fugamura down on the ground in a hold, and you're holding him, and you go, hey, come over here to your fellow samurai, and he comes over, and while you're holding the guy, he pulls out his katana, and he finishes the guy off. So I think that's what's behind the pinning in judo, that if you're not out of that hold within a designated 20 seconds, that other samurai's coming over, and he's finished, you're done. So it is a death hold. So I mean, it's still martial arts. I mean, you know, martial arts is based on taking the guy out. Let's face it. In karate, you know, the knockout punch. In judo, the knockout, killer throw, the strangle, the pin. It's still, you know, basically a war between samurai. And But the most spectacular way to win in judo, and what all judoka strive for, is the ippon throw. And the ippon throw is where you literally take the person up in the air with power, and you control him all the way down. He lands on the mat hard, the room shakes, there's a lot of noise, and the referee immediately walks forward and goes, boom! Sotomare, the end of the match, and the people applaud, and that is in judo the gold medal of judo. I mean, you can win a lot of different ways, but there isn't a judoka out there that wouldn't say that would be their preference of how to win. And it's like I tell my students, I said, don't leave it in the hands of the referees. I mean, when you do the killer ippon and the room shakes and the referee calls ippon and everyone goes, what the hell happened over on that mat? You're done. And when it comes down to the referees looking who had more penalties and the time ran out and now they have to make a decision, I said, now you're in the hands of the referees. So ideally, as a judoka and as a sensei, you tell your students, finish them hard, finish them fast, use a loud ki, make the room shake, let everyone know you scored that big ippon, and then there's no questions asked who won the match. And again, translating into martial arts, street fight, that's the ideal way you win a fight too, on the street. When it's a knockout punch, there's no questions asked. And while judo is a grappling art, in a way, we're a striking art too. We strike the person with the ground, and we strike them on their entire body. When we throw you on the ground, we want the whole body to hit the ground, and the ground is the fist you have in karate or taekwondo. We throw you in the ground, and you know you've been hit. I wanted my kids to be adept at blocking, kicking, punching, and striking. I didn't want them to be like me, mainly just judo grappler. And I think it's important in martial arts to get exposure to the other styles and to not get myopic and just focus on what your style is, because every style has its benefits and its deficits. And, we could go through and talk about all the martial arts and what the differences are. In the end, my son's a judo guy first. He's a 5th dan in judo. But, with his black belt in Shotokan, his black belt in Kendo, the experience he's had doing Muay Thai, and the experience he's had doing some BJJ, he's rounded. And I think that in the end is very, very important. And obviously, with the development of the UFC, I watched the whole thing in the beginning. There were a lot of judo guys on those early UFC, Joe Charles, and many famous judo guys were on there. And those battles were fun to watch. And it was fun to see how the different martial arts did against each other and the weaknesses of the different martial arts. And why it pays to branch out and to, not get too attached to one thing where you become blocked towards having a rounded experience. I remember after I'd been in judo for a year or two, I started reading Black Belt magazine back then. And one of the articles that came out in '68 was about the philosophy of judo and the principles of judo, Jita Kyo, which is to work together with your opponent to help each other, mutual welfare and benefit. And the other one, Soroku Zenyo, which is the maximum efficiency, minimum effort principle of judo. And I read this article by Hayward Nishioka out here on the West Coast, and it was the first time I actually saw the higher level ideals behind judo. And Kano's goal of judo really surprised me. It was perfection of character. And what does that mean to a 14-year-old kid in Pittsburgh? I mean, the perfection of character, Jitko no Kensei. And later on in college, I came to realize perfection of character probably is analogous to Maslow's principles of psychology, and the highest level is self-actualization. And self-actualization is a person who knows themselves, is comfortable in their own skin, doesn't take themselves overly serious. I mean, I'm known to be kind of a ham, talk a lot into the mic, and I go to the tournaments as the president, and a lot of times I'm asked to say a few words, and the first thing they'll say is, "Get that mic out of Gary's hand," and I laugh about it, because it's true. I mean, you know, if you're a self-actualized person, you should know your own proclivities, and you should know what you do and what your signature is. And I'm amazed often how many times I see high-ranking martial artists in judo that have no clue as to their own persona, how they project themselves. So let's get back to how judo helped me in my life. I mean, I wasn't a sports-minded kid. I wasn't a competitive kid. And Mr. Kim used to tell me, "Goltz, you got to go to the tournaments. One tournament's worth 6 months of practice." And, you know, I took Mr. Kim literally. I believed everything he told me. And I forced myself to go to these tournaments as much as I hated it. And because of that, I learned to overcome my fear. And I learned to get out there and do the best you can. And, you know, if you win, great. If you lose, it's still great. You went and you did it. It's better than sitting at home watching reruns of Highway Patrol or the Three Stooges, and today sitting at home playing Nintendo all day. You know, like a lot of these kids that come into my club, they're prisoners of video and their Game Boys and everything else. And so judo got me into that mental cycle of where you had to be challenged, you had to make yourself nervous and overcome it and in order to succeed. One of the standing mantras of judo, Mifune used to say, is fall down 7 times, get up 8. So you learn in judo that success comes as a result of failure. I mean, if you're not failing, you're never going to be successful. I remember in my career, I got my first job because I had a black belt in judo. I got interviewed on a Friday night. The guy called me up and wanted to see me on Monday for this company that was in the home medical business. And I went in for the interview, and he talked about him being an Eagle Scout and how he was impressed I had a black belt in judo. And at 23 years old, I nailed the manager job of this company that did home medical equipment. Today, the company is Apria, which is the largest home medical equipment company in the United States. And I was in there at the early stages, and I would go out and call on accounts, and they would tell me this lady's never going to use our company because of some mishap that happened with one of the patients. She referred to us from the hospital she was the discharge planner at, and I would go in there and make myself seen. And sometimes I'd get thrown out. And I'd go back out to the car and I'd go, well, I got to go back there next week and come up with another reason. That's judo. That's me getting thrown at the tournament and coming back for the second time until I finally get the ippon. And that persevering quality was drummed into my head in the judo, and I didn't even realize how much that was affecting my success in business. But my bosses realized it right away, and they promoted me. They took me from Pittsburgh to Chicago, and now I was running the biggest operation in the country. We were doing, when I left there, 15 million in annual sales, and all the salespeople in the company, I became sort of the mentor to all of them. They wanted me to bring them in, they wanted me to train them, and when I would hire new salespeople, I would do just like the fellow who hired me, who became the president of the company. I would look for things like they were on the wrestling team at their college, or they were a track and field champion. I would pick something where they had to be on their own, in their own mind, and had to persevere. And those were the kind of people I wanted to recruit into the sales team. And then I would train them in the discipline of going out and making the calls. Like my dad said, you got to make the calls. And I would tell them you have to have a quota for yourself and you can't stop until you do it. And it was sort of like the same discipline that you had in judo. You had to do 100 uchikamis, and then randori real hard and get thrown around and go to a tournament. And if you won or you lost, it didn't matter. You just kept going back. And that's what I had instilled in me. And that's what I in turn instilled in all these recruits that I would bring into the company. And some of those recruits, like me, went on to be making $100,000 at 30 years old back in like 1982, which is a lot of money. And some of them became entrepreneurs like I did, starting their own companies. And seriously, it was that kind of martial arts discipline that I got from judo that changed my life. There was no doubt in my mind that had I kept going my own way, watching TV, not doing any sports, I would have been a mild-mannered type of kid and would be living a mild-mannered type of life. But because of the judo and Mr. Kim saying, Goltz, you got to go to the tournaments, and putting myself in situations as a kid that were anxiety producing and having to overcome them. I mean, Anna Maria DeMars, Rhonda's mom, she one time said that if she got one thing out of judo, judo made her embarrassment proof. And I tell that to my students. I get a lot of these kids in Claremont, very affluent area. I got a lot of well-educated kids that are going on to becoming doctors and lawyers, kind of like the little town I grew up in Pittsburgh, where the Jewish kids were all told they were going to be doctors, and if you were a failure, you were going to go to law school. And, you know, I see these kids having the same type of anxiety issues that I suffered from, and I push them. I push them to get over it. Another concept in judo and in martial arts, particularly the Japanese martial arts, is the mindset, mushin, no mind. And that's what I tell my students. I tell them when they go into battle, they have to have like a samurai, mushin. They can't be thinking about the fight you had with your wife, or the fact that your college paper is overdue, or you failed a class, or you were sick this morning. You have to focus on the here and now, mindfulness. If you're thinking about anything other than what's going on right in front of you, the here and now, if you're a samurai, that could mean the other guy's cutting you in half with his katana. So I mean, it's a very important concept, mushin. In fact, when I first started my dojo years ago, I was going to call it something along the lines of Mushindo Judo, Gary Goltz's club. And if it wasn't for my late departed mentor and friend, Dr. Osvaldo Zarantinello, who got to be a 9th Dan in judo, was the Argentinian national champion, was an orthopedic physician south of the border. In this country, he couldn't get the license, so he practiced chiropractor. But I remember when I first started my dojo, I was talking about all these names, Mushindo, and he said, Gary, if I didn't have a name like Zarantinello, if I had a last name like yours, Goltz, I'd call it Goltz Gym. And that's when I came up with the concept of Goltz Judo Club. Then later on, when the UFC started, and I saw the success of Hoist and Horian, I actually got to meet them when I was an LAPD defensive tactics advisor. A lot of us were on that panel, Gene LaBelle, Gokar Chavikian, to name a few, the Gracies. And when I started hearing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, I looked at my club name, Goltz Judo Club, and I said, it's going to be Goltz Judo from now on. I took that from the Gracies. I said, that's a good name, a very short, sweet Goltz Judo. And I had the patch change. It used to say Goltz Judo Club, and then now it's just going to be Goltz Judo, like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I like that. In June, I turned 70 years old. And that's a big birthday. I thought turning 30 was huge, 40, 50, 60, I thought, man, that's a lot. I'm an old guy. But 70, that really feels like you're getting up there. I mean, you know, if you live into your 80s or 90s, you're doing great. And I've been through a lot of funerals and deaths of my friends over the years. Hal Sharp, Dr. Zoran Tonello, Kyu-Ha Kim. As I'm older and as I'm losing more and more of my closest friends, I realize the camaraderie, the closeness you develop in judo, in the martial arts, is the glue of life. One of the things I love about judo, that Kano really instilled in judo, is that you judge people in judo by them in their gi. Let me explain that a little bit. On the mat, everyone lines up. They all wear a gi that used to be all white until the Olympics said you can wear a blue gi if you're on the other side, so you can tell who's who in the match. But back in the days, we all wore white gis, and we all stood there, and the guy standing next to you could be a garbage man. The guy standing next to you could be a professor or a surgeon. The lady standing over here might be a school teacher, might be a police officer, might be a stay-at-home mom. You don't know if they're black, if they're white, if they're a man, or if they're a woman, if they're gay, if they're whatever. In judo, the only thing you see is the person and their gi. And when you bow in, you do the judo, and you see how they act. Are they good at judo? Are they respectful? When they throw you, do they go, hey, are you okay? That was a nice fall you took? Or do they throw you and they have that sort of menacing grin like they enjoyed seeing you suffer a little bit as you took your fall? And when you bow out, you walk away and you go, he's a really good guy, or she's a really nice woman. That guy's a jerk. That guy's an asshole. That guy, I wouldn't trust him. I'd never turn my back to him out in the real world. So in judo, you learn to size people up for what's inside them, what makes them tick, not by their title, not by the car they're driving in the parking lot, not by how much money they have if they own the mansion on the hill, not by their religion, not by anything other than the raw way they act in judo on the mat. And I think that that's one of the great things that Kano gave the world, a paradigm to look at people for what they really are inside, not from the exterior. And I believe that is going to help the world. And Kano understood that when he said judo would build a stronger community. And Kano, unlike a lot of people at the time in Japan, encouraged people from other countries to come and take judo. And the Kodokan has an international following. And judo gave me that paradigm of looking at the things very broadly, very worldly, and I get along great with people from other countries. I mean, I could always talk to Mr. Kim one-to-one, and we understood each other better than somebody that was totally raised here and spoke English. I could understand Mr. Kim better because it was coming from his heart, and we could connect. And it gave me a paradigm for life that I think keeps me grounded. And, you know, I've had a lot of successes in life and a lot of failures. And as my friend Carl Geist and one of my mentors would say, you have to know your own proclivities, not take yourself too seriously. And I'm striving towards that, self-actualization, perfection of the character. I understand what that is. It's nothing that you're ever going to reach, but it's something you continue to strive for. And as long as you're alive, you're striving towards that goal, and you're always improving. They said Funakoshi on his deathbed was still doing in his mind katas, and he was still perfecting them. And I think that's the way you have to be if you're a serious budoka, a martial artist. You're always striving to improve. You're always striving to learn. You're always looking for the weakness, looking what you can learn from somebody. One of the things that judo taught me is to look for people that don't think like you, I mean, if somebody's throwing you around, that's the person you want to work with. So, I mean, I surround myself with people that a lot of times tell me I'm full of it. And in business, when I got my MBA from Pepperdine, I was the youngest person to be accepted to the President and Key Executive program at Pepperdine. One of the things they taught us in the President and Key Executive program at Pepperdine is that you want to, in a business, always surround yourself with people that don't agree with you. And people that you might even be repelled by, or say, I don't want to be with this person. That's the person you want on your advisory board. That's the person that tells you when all your friends are saying, you're doing a great job, keep going, you're taking a long walk and you're going straight, and you're taking a long walk off a short pier. That guy tells you you're wrong about everything. That's the person that could save your life and business, and that's the person you want around you. So if I got another thing out of judo and out of later on my experience with Pepperdine, it's be with people that don't think like you, and be with people that tell you you're full of it. And I'm telling you, when you're trying to make an important decision in business or in life, and those people agree with you, then it's scary. You go like, oh my God, they all agree with me. And this is the first time they ever all agreed with me. I must be really right about this one. So I mean, that's one of the values that I got out of judo. It's you know, don't buy your own story, and be willing to listen to somebody that's going to tell you you're full of yourself and you're going the wrong direction. Because sometimes that may be the only person that's telling the captain of the Titanic, turn the ship around, we're not going to make it. And you like a bullhead are listening to everyone else and kicking yourself as the thing's going down. How come I didn't listen to Joe Schmo over there when he told me he was worried about the ship tonight? You might be in a situation where that dissenter saved your ass, saved you from an embarrassment or death, or bringing the whole company down.
Sensei, thank you very much.
Now, you know, you and I have known each other a long time, and I so appreciate the relationship you had with Hal Sharp and putting his videos on DVDs. You know, I'm also the president of the Hal Sharp Teacher Society, which we continue to run in memory of Hal. And Hal was a legend, and I love the guy. And, you know, he helped put judo back on the map after World War II when he wrote The Sport of Judo. I was at the Kodokan, and I saw how Daigo, the head of the Kodokan at the time, came up to the 6th floor because Sharp was there. And it became clear to me he wasn't coming up because he was Daigo, the head of the Kodokan, paying his respects to the team from California. He was Daigo, the head of the Kodokan, coming up to see Hal Sharp, who wrote The Sport of Judo and helped open up judo after World War II. And that's how much he was revered over there. Yes. And it was just, I've had such a rich life. I mean, from that time I read the article by Hayward and Black Belt to coming out here and becoming close friends with Hayward, close friends with Hal Sharp, close friends with Dr. Zarantanello, Jin Izumi. I can name so many people that I've had tight relationships with, and I'm just so grateful. You know, these were people as a kid I would read about in Black Belt, and now they're all my friends and contemporaries. And you know, sometimes I got to pinch myself. You know, they're like, wow, how did this little squirt from Pittsburgh, little Jewish community, started judo at the Jewish Y, get there? It's just like sometimes I got to sit back and go, amazing.
Well, sir, you're an inspiration. And thank you very much for taking the time to come down.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. It's been a great time.
The people, they're not willing to sacrifice in the tournament. They can fight tournaments for 40 years, they don't win. Why? They're not willing to commit. I don't like to disengage once I engage.
Because why? I spent all this effort and time trying to break his barrier. And once I do that and pull out, that tells me that I'm just fighting. And I don't want to fight. My whole purpose is to defeat. My philosophy is that I allow him to decide how he wants to die. I don't decide, he decides. So what I'm doing is I'm waiting for a mistake. Future. How do you go into the future? You take his mind, put him in the past, you're in the future.
All this has to be quick. So you step down, full time out, push him to his head. Right, switch, hit, and then right, bang. Bikini Tertia is the art of the living past in modern times. In an effort to bridge our global community through learning the art of Bikini Tertia, we have created an online platform that ensures an unmatched standard of quality for distance learning. For beginners, the curriculum provides opportunities to kickstart your journey through a focus on our fundamentals. For more advanced practitioners, we offer the opportunity to enhance your progression by providing instruction that will supplement and deepen your existing skill level. Whether your goal is a dedicated focus on Bikini Tertia, the Filipino martial arts in general, or if you seek to supplement your martial arts training through the bladed arts, Bikini University will help you achieve your goals and take your progression to new heights. Filmed across 3 continents through a multitude of high-level international instructors from civilian, law enforcement, and military sectors, Bikini University honors the depth and breadth of the system by offering a variety of specialized courses that suit your training goals. In addition, we have provided students with a robust network of senior instructors called gabais, or guides, for personalized progress assistance through interactive video communications. This allows us to confidently rank and promote students through their first few levels remotely. It is the gabai's job to monitor and give personal feedback on your progress. We have also created an active and exclusive online support group for Bikini University members to share your progress and to ask questions from Bikini University members all around the world. While there is no replacement for in-person training, we believe that Bikini University is the next best thing and the perfect supplement for in-person training opportunities. Visit www.bikini.university to learn more about our efforts to keep this ancient art thriving and relevant in modern times.